Hey there, this is Sarah Bueno from Conversations with a Wounded Healer. I just wanted to stop in and do a little bitty mini episode because I had a really interesting dream last night and kind of got inspired to share a little bit more about it. So, as a lot of people know, I have a business partner and he and I are trying to, how do you say it? I guess basically open up an intensive outpatient, which basically is like higher level of care for people with addiction and mental health issues. And it's a really big undertaking, and it feels like there's a lot of me that says, oh, I'm not ready, or I'm not good enough, and all sorts of things, even though, I get information of the contrary from, people that know me and other people in the field. And so I've kind of chalked it up to being those gremlins in my head. So last night, I had a really good day yesterday. I felt really positive. My husband and I ended the day going to yoga, and then I was reading right before bed, just feeling pretty cool and not anxious or anything. But the dream that I had was so ridiculously, obviously rooted in anxiety. I found it so interesting. So in the dream, I was literally on top of a skyscraper, and I'm not talking I was on the top floor of a skyscraper, literally on the outside on top of the skyscraper. And there was a point where I accidentally dropped something, and we were literally listening to see if somebody screamed down below, if I had killed them because I dropped something from that high a height. And I don't consider myself a person who is afraid of heights. I feel like I have a normal fear of heights, but not an over exaggerated fear. But in the dream, I was totally gripped by fear. I was scared out of my motherfucking mind. And I remember even thinking in the dream, well, this is odd. This isn't usually something that I'm so super afraid of. And then the dream moves, and, we're kind of supposed to do this daredevil climb off of the roof, but I chose to go the easy route and then go down the elevator. And James Spader, 80s James Spader, let's be really honest about this. James Spader, when he was super hot. Yes, I'm objectifying him. James Spader was playing this bad guy character who was Russian for whatever reason. I don't know. And I don't really know why he was such a bad guy, but in the dream I was running from him. And in the dream also, I was supposed to be at a meeting with my partner. And so I'm trying to get to this meeting, and I'm freaking out. And I get to the meeting, and there's this gigantic, really, really, really long board room sort of table, and people are sitting at it, clearly just getting ready for this meeting. And I'm losing my mind. I'm so scared, and I'm trying to figure out how do I tell my business partner that this guy's about to come and he's about to ruin everything, and I was texting my business partner and calling him and not getting him, and ended up crawling into this little space and thinking I would hide from him there, and then thinking no, that's too obvious, he's gonna find me. And at some point I woke up, and when I woke up, usually the first thing I do in the morning after I brush my teeth and stuff is I meditate. And so I was just kind of reflecting, and, in your morning haze, you're not oh yeah, I totally can interpret this dream. But I sat there for a minute, and then I Googled fear of falling or, whatever in dreams. And of course it came up that it's, fear of failure. And I'm just sitting there kind of laughing at how obvious the dream was, because I just talked to my partner the night before over text about, okay, we're going to do this thing and it's going to be great. And then I have this dream that everything that I'm terrified of failing. So it's interesting that I had that dream too. And right before I went to bed, I was reading Comfortable with Uncertainty by Pema Chodron, 108 Teachings on Cultivating Fearlessness and Compassion. And one of the passages that I read last night, I feel is a really great, kind of example of this sort of fear that we have. Disappointment, embarrassment, and all the places where we cannot feel good are a sort of death. Rather than realizing that it takes death for there to be birth, we just fight against the fear of death. Reaching our limit is not some kind of punishment. It's actually a sign of health that when we meet the place we're about to die, we feel fear and trembling. But usually we don't take it as a message that it's time to stop struggling and look directly at what's threatening us. Things like disappointment and anxiety are messages telling us that we're about to go into unknown territory. Our suffering is so grounded in our fear of impermanence. Our pain is so rooted in our lopsided view of reality. Pain is not a punishment. Pleasure is not a reward. And I was like, whoa, dude. I'd heard that quote before. Pain is not a punishment. Pleasure is not a reward. And it's so hard to remember that when I'm in moments of struggle. You know, I've been feeling pretty good the past several days and feeling like, oh yeah, I got my shit together. And I'm sure in a day or two, something's going to happen and it's going to throw me off my axis. And I'll get back into that place where I'm judging the fact that I'm feeling pain. And it's so funny, like, even though this is what I do for a living, and even though I've been in therapy for millions of years now, I still get to that like crisis point of feeling like everything is falling apart and I'm a total failure. And it's all this fear of death makes so much sense to me, and not about literal death, but just the death of what I believe to be true or what I think is supposed to happen. And I'm opening up to curiosity, this idea of if I consider for myself that there's death in everything, if that is going to help, I guess, maybe sort of soften the fear of when the emotions feel out of control. Like if I assume that whenever I'm anxious, I'm having a fear of something changing, and really change is death if we kind of equate it that way, because it is the death of whatever idea I had before. So I don't really know all the answers, but I felt compelled to share my thoughts and share my dream. And I'm going to just keep holding on to, you know, my, I guess, intellectual dream that I have the capacity to create something that's going to be really helpful for people and that's going to be important, and hope that along the way, when I make the mistakes, I'm able to be compassionate with myself and not judge when it doesn't go my way. So those are my thoughts for a little mini episode today. So thank you so much for tuning in. Also wanted to thank Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios for editing our podcast, Liam O'Donnell for taking the photo for the album art, and Ben Mueller for our theme music. Really appreciate you listening, and till next time.